All right, so let's talk about the tools that we're going to use for cutting the glass out. The first one is our glass cutter, but it doesn't actually cut glass. It scores glass, so it puts a superficial scratch on the surface of the glass. And I don't know if you can see, it's got this little tiny wheel at the tip. It's got kind of like a suspension system. I believe that is to wick the cutting oil down to that wheel, that lubricant. And it has a canister to hold the cutting oil. I usually don't use this because it is a little bit messy. This one is called a pistol grip. You have a pencil grip, which is a long linear one. I'm sorry, this is not a pistol grip. The pistol grip you would hold like this, but I'll show you those later in some, I guess, reviews as we get down the line. You also want to have a container for the cutting oil where we're going to continually lubricate this this cutter to save our wheel. It is a diamond tip, so it needs to be lubricated. There's also the running pliers. These I use mostly. There's also these guys, I think they call them nippers. I don't trust myself with these. I usually just break things with this, but they are good for pulling apart some of the smaller pieces. All right, so let's start with the last piece that we laid out. Much like when you are thinking about how to place the glass, how to place the pattern on your glass, you want to think about how it's placed on your piece of glass. If I zoom out, you can see that this is a pretty big piece of glass, and I don't want to mess with too much of it, so I am going to kind of cut away the part that I am dealing with the most. So what I'm going to do is simply, you don't have to press too hard. I always keep my thumb there to kind of keep it going. All right. I'll get more into how to hold the cutter. This is something that takes a bit of time to learn. I'm about 1/4 of an inch in on the end. I'm going to apply just the tiniest bit of pressure until I hear that click. That's what I want. Be careful not to hold it from the piece that you're trying to break away. It could break away while you're moving it and give you a nasty cut. There we go. So as you can see, it starts to run that break. Then I'll go back to the original side because in my brain the crystals have realigned and now I can do other things. So I don't know if you can see how it's running, but it was running. You can also use the back of your glass cutter to tap. And I'm just going to keep doing this though because it will give way. That was an excellent run, so I think this is going to be the winner. I can see the run going all the way through the glass. Nope. Well, let's try this method. I'm going to get behind it when it falls. Nope, let's see here. It's not playing, guys. And this isn't even cutting the piece out. All right, I'm getting a little bit more aggressive with it. There we go. All right, so this is our number 6 piece. All right, so hopefully you saw some of those shards just kind of fall down into the waffle grid, so they shouldn't be getting in my hands or hanging out around the surface. When you're grinding, we'll get to this later, you definitely don't want to breathe glass dust in either, so you want to wear a mask. I'm zoom in here a little bit. All right, so we have a number 6 piece. All right, so there's a couple of ways to approach cutting a piece. And I've got my wheel. I've just kind of dabbed it in here. Made sure it's rolling around. It's nice and lubricated. You can start with the straights. You can start with the curves. I have heard a lot of people say start with the trickiest parts first. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to start with this curve right here. I'm going to kind of lean down so hopefully the glass piece stays in camera. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more for you. All right, so I'm going to line up the center of this wheel, so the center of this notch, with the inside of this black line, because that should be exactly where the paper powder, that's hard to say, paper pattern piece ended. Sorry, I knocked the camera. So as you can see, that little click, 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 it's a great sound to hear. You also want to keep your cutter, let me zoom out now for you. You want to keep your cutter straight up and down, so perpendicular to your glass. You don't want it to go side to side. There's some people that believe more about pulling towards you. I like pushing away, and also I place my thumb under it just in case it hits a bubble or a bump or something. I can kind of nudge it along, but keep it on track. Now, for me, I would not break this right now because, as you've heard me say, I want some runway for the glass cutter to use. Otherwise, you'll be kind of onboarding through the edge of the glass, and I just feel like that's a little bit, a little difficult at times. Not the worst. I'm going to zoom in here and see if we can get this next piece, or this next line, curve, whatever. So go slow when you're doing this. Not trying to run a race. Okay, there, it hit a little pocket. No problem. All right, so I finished that curve out. Now for the straight lines, here we go. We already know that we have a score run across here, so I can theoretically just pick up here. I don't have to start here if I don't want to. Let me get centered here. Oh, let me zoom out a little bit. You can't see what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. Little ASMR for you. Now you can use a ruler to do that. You just have to know how far away to have this from the ruler to be able to score. I'm gonna turn around. Like I said, like on the previous curve, we have this curve running from side to side, so I know that I can start it right here. Try to keep it as straight as possible. So what we're doing, as you can see, is we're trying to score within that black line so that when we break the glass, there's no black line left, because when we bring this to the grinder, we're gonna theoretically try to grind that black line away. We want no evidence of that. All right, so now I'm gonna start with the trickiest parts first. I'm gonna start with this curve right here. Let me see if I can get up a little bit closer. There we go. I'm going to do that same thing where I'm just going to barely. All right, so you saw that? That one went pretty fast. So obviously right here, pardon my gross hands, there's a little bit of black. So that may be ground off at the grinder. We'll just see how this plays out. Same thing, I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch in, lightly press down. I did hear a click, so it's already running. If you can see, you can kind of see it right there. It's already starting to run. And going to the other side. Not clicking yet. Ooh, okay. All right, so I'm gonna keep this piece, let that piece kind of fall. Gotta be careful getting cut. Okay. Pretty good here. For the most part, that black Sharpie is gone. All right, and again, light pressure. It ran pretty straight. There's, as you can see, there is some black there. So I will have to grind that away, but that's all right. I'm also, usually I do it bird's eye view, straight down, and that's where the camera is right now, so it's a little hard making excuses. All right, so now we have piece number 6 ready to go. And if we place it right here, theoretically, again, we want to see the black line, and it is overlapping a little bit. But again, we'll just kind of see how this plays out, this particular piece plays out, and hopefully that will work great. All right, I'm going to reset for a second, and we're going to go on to the next piece. All right, so next we're going to go on to number 7. We are trucking along just fine now. Gonna make sure I have a good bit of that oil on my tip here. I'm gonna first start by making the score here so that I can make sure that I preserve this portion of the glass. All right, let's see how I did now. Like I've been saying, it's hard to make some of these cuts with the camera right here, but we're gonna figure it out. Next, we're gonna do this other end. Let me zoom in a little bit. So for him, this is a long stretch. So instead, I'm gonna just focus on this immediate area. I hit a little bump there, so my thumb is behind, just urging it along. It's a very gentle curve. Now the reason it only went partially the way, I'm gonna go ahead and run the score all the way to the edge of the glass on the sides there. Each side, here we go. I got a little off there, I waved a little bit, I don't know if you saw that. But some of this we can make up with the grinder and some kind of foiling solder cover-up tips we'll go through. All right, going through a second side, that's my dog hitting the camera. All right. So there we go. You got most of that piece in. All right, so let's go ahead and putting it in the sunlight. You can kind of see right there is where I scored it. I'm gonna go in about 1/4 of an inch again. And lightly, I went in one fell swoop. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, next I'm gonna run the sides since I only scored the little bit of the smaller distance on that. See, that already clicked. That's awesome. That went all the way, no problem. I've got quite a bit of black on there, but as long as it's a straight line, we'll probably be okay. I'm gonna come back to this one. Actually, I'm gonna go on the other end. Since I had a click and a run on this side, I'm gonna see if I can make that same thing happen on this end. Actually, it just went, and that's a very clean cut. Barely any of that black line. And here is the last little bit. And there we go. Probably just touch that up a tiny, tiny bit at the grinder. That's focusing. There you go. All right, so that's number 7. Who is next? Let's go ahead and do number 2. Number 2 is a tiny guy. It's gonna be kind of hard to see in this light. Things are getting a little bit darker outside here. What you can also do that does help is, let me get a piece of paper. This is just what I had close by. Putting something white under it can kind of help a little bit too if it's a more of a translucent glass. Okay, so both those sides are in. This has, can't really tell, it is a tiny bit of a gentle curve. I'm not sure if I preserved that, but we've got some tips and tricks. Now, since we're running the full length of these lines, you cannot see what I'm doing, the full length of these lines, I'm going to go ahead and just score this tiny bit, not all the way across. And I do that to preserve glass and to be efficient, hopefully. All right, so I'm gonna run the long sides, just that's how I prefer to do it right now. Gentle, and it did great. All right. And there we go. All right. Next piece All right, we're gonna try for number one. We'll see. This one's gonna be a little bit tricky because we have this curve. We want to preserve everything within that curve. I believe that's a concave curve. I guess it depends on your perspective. To preserve this nice little chunk of glass, I'm just going to go ahead and score right along here. Going to break it. Save that piece, the bigger piece. I'm going to go ahead and put more oil on my glass cutter here. All right, so for this one, we definitely know that we want to score along this line. That is a very, very gentle curve. Going nice and slow there. All right. I'm going to try to do this. Usually if I'm directly above it, I can kind of spin it. Let me see if I can do that. I like to try to keep the tool on it and not pick it up because I will lose my place, and sometimes it can get difficult to find again. Again, taking my time. Yep, I went backwards a little bit there. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to keep it in the frame, and I'm trying to make this as awkward as I can, so I am definitely waiting there. See my hand shaking a little bit? All right, so we have scored the entire thing. What I'm gonna do is kind of put in a couple of reliefs. Now, if you take your glass cutter and you can kind of slide it over, you can feel where that score has been made. I'm just gonna kind of run some reliefs around it. Just hopefully it'll guide it in the right spot. Going in about 1/4 inch, light pressure. That went really well. All right, so if I didn't run these reliefs, these little radiuses with the glass cutter, it still could very well do an awesome job of going around that curve. And honestly, I probably should have started with not doing it just to see what happens, but here we are. I already felt it run, so I'm really happy about that. I already feel that run again. Okay, now I'm gonna go in a little bit more and see if I can guide it. Well, at least it hit where I wanted it to, right? Go right back in here. Oh, we got lucky there. All right, now as you can see right here, it kind of got goofy. We're gonna take this bit off with the grinder, and this isn't quite perpendicular. You could trash this and start over. I feel like I can kind of make that flow with proper foiling and soldering. So that's gonna be a keeper for us. All right, I think these are our last 2 pieces if I'm not mistaken here. All right, so I'm gonna start, I wanna preserve this little piece here. So I'm gonna go ahead and score it. Oh, hit a bubble. Now that's not gonna quite line up, but you get the drift. It's not gonna be the best flow, but hey. All right, now let's strategize here. So if I broke it here first, if I went ahead and used the pliers here, my next move would probably be right here. Don't get too bogged down in that and trying to figure out what is the next best one. You'll know pretty quickly how to kind of hit it quickly and get the results that you want. I started just at the top because I do have that longer, goofy, unfortunately, line going along the top. I'm just gonna finish that off. Okay, now I've got a few straight cuts here. I went backwards. You're not really supposed to do that, but things happen. All right. And This should be the only one I have left. And guys, after this, we're gonna be headed to the grinder. Right. So I'm gonna start with the hardest one first, which is typically a curve here. All right, so found my little score line going in just a tiny bit. Ooh, you saw that run? You get excited about that sound. It's a good sound. Glass breaking usually is not a good sound, but it is here. All right. All right, so we got that one done. Go ahead and hit this one next. Looking good so far. This one is probably our next troublemaker, so I'm gonna get this one next. Yep, I heard a little click. I don't know if the camera microphone picked it up. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go with this one next. All right, and this is our very last one. Got lucky, I gotta say. Usually things don't turn out that well, but here we go. We've got 9 pieces cut. I'm gonna reassemble and show you guys kind of what it looks like pieced together. All right, so next I've just kind of grabbed the next one that was in my little stash here. This is number 3. Pretty basic shape. Doesn't really matter how you go about it. I think for purposes of this, I'm going to do this as the first score so that I could possibly use that bit for something. And let me zoom in here. All right. And like as before, I'm just gonna go nice and slow. Trying to keep this kind of perpendicular to the piece, so you don't want to go side to side. You want to try to be as vertical as you can to the glass. And I'm just meeting that score line there so that hopefully I can save all of that. Okay, so I do know that these are straight lines, so I'm just going to keep that in mind when I am at the grinder. I'm going to apply just a little bit of pressure, but I'm pretty sure since it's a short distance, it'll probably go all the way through. There you go. A little bit of black left, no problem. Okay, that one did pretty good. All right, and there's our number 3. A little bit of black, but you know, pretty good overall. All right, let's take a look at this guy. This is our next one. This is the one that we butted 2 pieces up together. They're sharing a line, but we noted, if you remember, which side of the line that we want to score on. This was just a practice on how to kind of save a little bit more glass. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And just because I want to make sure that I can save most of this, I'm going to cut this piece out to reduce the possibility of it breaking into the areas that I want to use. Okay, could have gone a little bit closer there, but it's hard to do this with the camera. All right, so I'm going to go about a 1/4 inch in, just slight pressure. I already heard it click, hopefully you did too, over my talking. And sometimes you have to put the glass in the light to look at the reflection to kind of see where your score line is. Going a 1/4 inch in. That was a really good run there. And then I just kind of like to go back and forth until some magic happens. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold the piece that I want to keep. This is going to be loud. I'm going to try not to get under this piece because it will fall and it could possibly cut. Okay, so just tapped it with the end of my score to shake things up a little bit. I'm going to go back here, maybe a little bit further in this time, just to see if some more magic happened. Woo! All right, there we go. So if you saw that when I broke that, it actually popped up a shard of glass. I am not wearing safety glasses, but it's highly recommended that you wear safety glasses. Just on the off chance that that happens to you. You can also wear some type of glove to reduce the possibility of having shards of glass or little glass splinters, or even just cutting your fingers. It is a little bit harder to work with the material, and we'll talk a little bit later about how you really don't want to have open wounds in general when working with solder and lead, but we will definitely go over that. But just case in point, just be careful with your eyes because of what I just did. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. All right. Okay, got that first one done. Now I'm feeling like going here and here next. Now, when I use the breaking pliers, it will tend to want to run that piece of glass the whole way, that run that crack basically. So you can get pretty close to the end. You don't have to go all the way to the end, and it'll know where to go. Okay, now I'm going to go on our sides here. Zoom out again. That was not out, that was in. And sometimes when I'm running, and I mentioned this before, when I'm running my score across the glass, of course you do want to have it lubricated with that oil again. Sometimes I'll use my little thumb in the back just to kind of nudge it along in case it hits a small bump or a bubble, air pocket or something. All right, so now we have, this is our final line to kind of deal with on this. And like we had noted before, we're going to focus on this side of the black line. Ooh, that's hard to do with the camera. Right in the way. But we're going to make it happen here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get this going. See if this will break for us nice and pretty. Pretty good. Got a little black there, but we can take care of that later. I'm going to go ahead and get this. Did great. I always like to proceed with caution. See, it already started running, which is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and let that go all the way down. Hopefully you can see. All right. Now we're going to go to this tip. Trying to focus as I go here. All right, now when looking at this piece, I feel like this side is the most vulnerable because it is so narrow across there, and I just kind of feel like I have a little bit more control at this end, and it's more vulnerable, so this is the end that I'm going to choose to score. You experiment though, and you see what works for you. And it's not clicking for me. Okay, I did it. It's very quiet. There we go. We have our 2 pieces here. All right, so here is our piece just kind of arranged how it's going to end up. Of course, we've got the numbers all where they're supposed to go, and I'm really happy with the distribution of ambers and blues and clears in this. I think it's going to look really cute. At the end, it's going to be encased in a piece of lead that'll really finish it off. And what I'd like to do is I want to kind of create a little contest where somebody is going to win this piece. All you have to do is like and subscribe and comment below. I don't know, show me some love. That'll be your comment. Just show me some love. I'd love to have some love today. So again, you can win this piece, a finished piece of stained glass, and you have to like and subscribe and just show me some love in the comment section below. And see you in the next video. Thanks so much.